How do you think of the phrase neoliberal ideology? And if I'm right to interpret you this way, why is it in fact antithetical to the free market and instead favorable to the wealthy rentier class that we've been discussing?
Well, the word neo very often is antithetical. It was Thorstein Veblen who coined the word neoclassical. And you think, what does neoclassical mean? It sounds like the new, they're saying, are they saying what the classical economists said? And what Veblen actually meant was, no, it's the opposite of classical economics. It was the new mainstream. It was the new official economics. What was neo was the status of this anti-classical economic. So neoliberal is supposed to be, you used to think of liberals as being for public infrastructure investment and socially productive, but neoliberal, it's really neo-feudal or neo-fascist. Neoliberal means the opposite of everything that the free market meant to the classical economics. To the classical liberals were the physiocrats, Adam Smith, on the classical economics, and what they wanted to do was free the economy, meaning free markets, from economic rent. They wanted freedom from predatory taxation, from predatory landlord rent, from predatory monopoly rent, from predatory finance. That was their neoliberalism was to actually free economies from unnecessary cost of production, unnecessary expenses of labor and industry. But today, neoliberal means anti-government. Neoliberal in the 19th century was against governments controlled by the landlords through the House of Lords in England and their counterparts in other countries. Neoliberal today means against productive governments, against any kind of government regulation. Neoliberal means don't tax rentier income, tax labor and capital, tax income earned industrially or productively, but don't tax parasitism, because we're the parasite class, and we're against government taxation, we're against government regulation. Don't have anti-monopoly laws. Let the monopolists make money. That's how we make money. We're the financial class. So neoliberal means dismantle the whole edifice of government that's been put in place over the last 2 centuries and replace it with what they call a free market, meaning a market without any government active role at all, a market of central planning. Neoliberal means centralized planning shifted away from Washington and other political capitals into the financial center, away from Washington to Wall Street, away from London's government to the city of London, and in other countries away from their industry towards the international banking. So neoliberal means the exact opposite of, to them, a free market is a market where the wealthy people are free to do whatever they want to the renters, to the consumers, to the debtors, and exploit them without any government interference with their extraction and predatory behavior.
Mm-hmm. Or to the extent that policy is still done in Washington, it's heavily influenced by financial and corporate interests.
Yes, neoliberalism is privatized what had been socialized for the last 2 centuries. It privatized healthcare instead of public health. It's privatizing the educational system through getting rid of public education, and it's privatized government. Government is up for sale in the United States by that with the Citizens United ruling of the Supreme Court. The campaign donors decide which politicians will have the money to buy the TV time and essentially to pay in the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee. The Democrats appoint the heads of every government committee by how much money can you contribute to the Democratic National Committee, which is a group of ultra right-wing rentiers, very much the same people who finance the Republican Party. They're the same party, basically, to contribute to make sure that labor and industry do not have a representation within the Democratic Party, but only the rentier class, especially what I call the fire sector: finance, insurance, and real estate, along with monopolies and the military-industrial complex. That's the core of the campaign contributors and who dominate both the Republican and the Democratic parties, but most blatantly through the Democrats.
So do you explicitly then view the two-party system in the United States as something that the rentiers have managed to co-opt into the service of perpetuating their interests?
Yes, basically the extremist libertarian rentier party, deregulatory party, is the Republican, and the Democrats, by pretending to be pro-labor, by pretending to be liberal, keep moving further and further to the right. Their job is to protect the Republican extremists, rentiers, from any criticism by labor unions or by the left. It's the Democrats' job is to detooth any attempt at socialism or really industrial capitalism, taking the dynamic movement that it was evolving into socialism a century ago.
Since time is starting to slip away from us, I wanted to give voice to what I think is probably a common criticism of this view. And since half the country, maybe this is an exaggeration, believes in trickle-down economics, just why is the concentration of wealth in the hand of rentiers specifically so bad? Is the idea that if this were industrial capitalism, as you've already laid out, and the money were going into investments in labor production and organization, then it might not be horrible. But the fact that it's just going toward pure wealth increases, and as you write in your book, increasing wealth is addictive, but maybe through stock buybacks and land acquisitions, this means that the capital just doesn't benefit anyone who doesn't own it?
Well, obviously, wealth is not trickling down. It's being sucked up. The pretense is that the rent extractors are part of the economy. That's why all of the money they extract is included in the national income accounts and product accounts, the NIPA, as product. Well, it's not product. The product is taken out of the production and consumption, and the zero product activity is all sucked up. Financial wealth grows exponentially by, as I mentioned, by compound interest and by asset price inflation. The recycling of finance into more and more purchase of stocks, bonds, real estate, and rent extracting resources makes American wage earners pay much more for housing. It used to be that Americans would pay less than 25% of their income for housing. This is in the 1940s and 50s. Now it's over 40%. All this extra money for housing gets paid to the financial and real estate sector. Basically, rent is for paying interest. And anybody can buy a house, but you have to pay all of the rent to the banker in order to get the mortgage to buy the house. And your only hope is, well, you can come out with a capital gain, which is really an asset price gain, is the price of that real estate asset is inflated on credit. So you're having that. The pretense is that, well, don't all these landlords spend their money back into the economy? Don't the bankers actually spend money back in? Well, the answer is no, they don't. Bankers do not make loans to build factories or for machinery and other capital investment. What they do is they make loans to corporate raiders who will buy a industrial corporation and then loot it. That's what private capital does. Private capital will simply take over, do to a company what it did to Toys R Us or Sears or any of the other companies that are going bankrupt. It'll buy a company. It'll do what Samuel Zell did with the Chicago Tribune, and they will begin to pay back the bankers that have lent them the money to buy the Tribune by emptying out the employees' stockholding in the Tribune. So the employees thought they were sharing in the part owners of capital, but being a minority investor does not give him any rights, and so that was looted. The capital raider will then say, well, let's just sell off some of the assets, the real estate, and then we'll sell off our buildings, and then we'll lease them back, and then we'll take the sale price that we get for selling the building, and we'll pay ourselves a special dividend. And all of a sudden, they'll pay themselves the dividend, and the company will now have to begin paying rent to the party to whom it sold the building, and is then taking a lease back on. Or the capital investor will go to a bank and say, well, look, here's what we're going to raise our prices. We're going to make the profits, make us a loan again, and we will promise to pay you this scheduled flow of rents and profits from our real estate and industry and monopolies and chemical companies or manufacturing companies. And so they'll take out a loan, and then they'll use the loan proceeds not to increase the production, but to pay themselves a special dividend. And all of a sudden, the bank it has debts to just about everybody that it's borrowed from, but this money has not been spent. England right now has been going over the problem of Thames water. If you want to see how the process works, look at Thames water that with Margaret Thatcher decided to privatize. And the buyers of Thames water simply borrowed money, and they paid themselves all the money that was borrowed. They just paid themselves the dividend. They did not fix the pipes that are leaking sewage into the water systems, beaches. They didn't fix the pipes from leaking. They didn't really put much investment in at all. And their role was to destroy the English water system and loot it and leave it a mess, while taking out a huge amount of money, pretending to spend the money back into the real economy. So the fact is, the money didn't trickle down from the owners of Thames water or from the corporate raiders in the United States. That's why they're called raiders. They pay themselves, and they then will raise prices if they can. As I mentioned earlier, they call that profit inflation, and it's merely monopoly rent power. And the Biden administration right now pretends to be pro-labor against monopoly, and it has Lisa Khan trying to fight monopoly, but it's fighting like hell to prevent Google from being subject to monopoly, the monopoly breakup. It's really the protector of monopoly. So it says one thing and does another. That's, I guess, politics throughout the world, but it's practiced to an unprecedented extent in American politics today. The pretense that rentiers are productive is the assumption underlying all economic models and all economic statistics. But just because it's in the statistics doesn't mean it's empirical reality. It's a parallel universe. It's science fiction.